Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to do this. As we do this, keep in mind, like I said, if there's anything that we can edit out, where we can just stop and pick up the conversation. Like if sometimes with my allergies, I'll start coughing, so we can stop and just kind of restart the conversation.
Okay, great. I'm pretty well prepared. By the way, thank you for being a customer of ours.
I've been a customer for quite a few years. I started when my practice was in Centerville. So when I first came across your company was when someone said soul supports, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I actually went up to the Highway 7 and visited the factory.
Oh, it's great. We're one of the few companies that allow people to come in because
Yeah.
we want people to see it's real.
It's really happening, taking place. So, the purpose of my podcast is to really just spread the information throughout our local community here in Dickson and just about other healthcare professionals, other healthcare services that are out there within our community. And I came across, I'm like, well, why are we not doing Soul Supports? It's a great local company. It is a fantastic local success story, hands down. And I have used the product myself personally. I was just trying to think if it was been 12 years possibly. I think I've been wearing the sole supports. And of course, we do mold for them here in our office. And so we are a local place. And I know I've gotten many patients to try to get into the sole supports as well. So I guess
Thank you.
I'd like you to, yeah, you're welcome. I'd like you to go through and just kind of give us kind of a storyline, like how you got into soul supports. I know your orthotics are definitely more unique. So if you can kind of just break through that whole discussion and let all of our listeners know about it.
Well, it all started in college. I was trying to double major in mechanical engineering and pre-med. And at the end of 4 years, I had 4 years scholarship. I finished neither. So I went to work as an assistant engineer for a few years, and during which time I saved enough money to go back to school on my own. And I had a choice which way I was going to go. And I chose pre-med and decided to become a foot doctor because believe it or not, when I was in college, I every Friday I would go volunteer at Nassau County Medical Center, and I'd ask them to put me in a different department each week to see what kind of doctor I might want to be. And when they put me in the basement with the podiatrists, it just clicked. They were so nice, and I got invited to their offices. So I applied to all five podiatry schools. I got in at all five, chose New York because they had the greatest number of clinic patients. But then I looked at the biomechanics that podiatrists claim to understand, and none of it made sense from a physics and engineering standpoint. So I set out to reinvent the science of foot biomechanics and bring it into agreement with Isaac Newton. And it was the simplest thing in the world, really. No one would raise the longitudinal arch because they didn't know how high to go or how hard to push.
Makes sense.
And both questions are very easy. How high to go is you start at the beginning. They were prior to me, the podiatrist was starting about halfway, a position called neutral position, which was made up in the shower. Has hasn't got a single piece of data behind it, and it's been thoroughly disproved to this point. Yet most podiatrists use it because they don't know any better.
Wow.
So I set out, started teaching, and I've probably taught now at 1,500 medical conventions across the United States and all over the world, really. I got hooked up with the International Foot and Ankle Foundation. When people ask me what I do for a living, I tell them about those resort lectures I go to.
I would say you create happy feet. I mean, what else do you need? Everybody wants happy feet.
Exactly. What we did was we simply raised the arch as high as it would go. And how hard to push, Isaac Newton told us. He said for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you take a curved piece of plastic and put it in your shoe, and you're asking how much vertical force should it apply to the human body, the answer is how much are you applying? And
Yeah,
that you could put somebody on a scale and measure their flexibility, because if the ligaments aren't helping, the orthotic has to work harder.
sure.
The third factor is hard to deal with, and that's momentum. because you could walk to the curb, notice it's raining, and run to your car. You don't change your orthotics at the curb. So instead, we look at ADL, the activities of daily living, and we shoot for the middle of it. And that's pretty good, unless you're a lineman for the Titans, in which case you've leg pressed till you can leg press 1,500 pounds, lined up 3 feet from another guy who did that, and you're running straight into each other. You're putting enormous amounts of force. So we have to calibrate a different range for our professional athletes and for the military.
Well, and probably the most recent thing that I came across. And I think you were even doing a webinar on that, and I found it fascinating because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a simple fix or correction because it's just like a leaf spring on a car. You put multiple layer. I'm like, that's genius, absolutely genius. So would you go through and kind of explain that because I know a lot of veterans have ruined feet because of they're basically just pack mules. They're carrying 100 pounds of equipment and weight, and it's just devastating, not just their feet, their knees, their backs, but it ruins a lot of things.
Well, what happened was I was teaching at the North Carolina Podiatric Medical. When I got off the podium, I was surrounded by uniforms. And I look up and I say, "Am I in trouble?" And they said, "No, no, no. We loved your lecture. And we have a third-year resident who's been a triathlete for a dozen years. And she's taking a handful of ibuprofen every day to stay out of pain. And you know what that does to your liver and kidneys."
Yep.
So,
Yep.
so
Terrible.
I looked at her problems. I said, 10 days, give me 10 days. And they said, "What do you mean?" "Let me make an orthotic for her and I'll make 3 pairs, one for her to run the marathon in, because you use more force running than walking,
Of course.
one to live in, and one to bicycle in." Well, I sent them, I took casts and they were poo-pooing the whole idea. They said, "We've tried every orthotic on the market."
Not mine.
Not mine, exactly. So I sent her the 3 pairs, and it was 10 days later, I got a call from the chief of podiatry at Bragg, Fort Bragg. And he said, "All right, she's pain-free. Will you come to Bragg and give a lecture?" And I said, "It'd be my pleasure. For our military, I'll do it for free." And
Yeah.
they said, "All right, now that you're coming, would you mind treating the 5 worst cases of foot pain in special forces?" I said, "That's a trick question. Special forces, your 5 worst could be so broken,
Right.
no one will have a chance of fixing them." I said, "Give me 25 and you got a deal." And they did. They gave me the 25 worst cases. Each one was being med boarded out of the service.
Yeah.
That means they go to San Antonio, get their final medical, their disability.
Yeah.
And these guys don't want to be out of the fight. You don't go into special forces because you wanted to sit on the sidelines.
No, exactly.
So they came in one at a time, barely talked. I mean, they're secret squirrels. And they came in one at a time, and uh, I asked them what they weighed because I have to calibrate the orthotic to deliver an equal and opposite range of forces. And then I asked what their pack weight was. And you were very astute. You said they carry heavy packs. Well, these guys were suffering with the kind of pain I wouldn't even stand up. And they start every day with a 12-mile march with with a huge pack on, 80, 100 pounds, like you said. And then they go into the most intense physical training you could imagine. I wouldn't last a minute. And I listened to this and I go, "All right, well, I'm going to have to make you 2 pairs, one calibrated for your body weight and uniform, one calibrated for your body weight, uniform, and pack." And about 3 weeks later, I get a text from the same podiatrist, and he says, uh, "They're extremely satisfied." So I called him up. I said, "What does that mean?" Because you don't get much information from special forces. They said, he said, "You just saved us $25 million." And that's what I did.
Oh,
I said, "Wow, how?"
yeah.
They said they cost $1 million apiece to train, and they all re-signed with the military. I
Wow.
said, I was flabbergasted. I said, "So what do you want?" They said, "Can you supply Bragg?" I said, "Absolutely." So I started sending him orthotics. I taught them how to cast. And about 50 pairs in, I realized I wasn't getting paid. And I said, "Okay." They're
Well,
special forces.
that's the
How,
government, though. I'll tell you, I've done VA work too, so trust me, that that's the government. They forget about that part.
well, I had applied for a DOD number, an NPI number, three TRICARE numbers. I thought that was it, but you have to, it goes through two referrals and the wording has to be exact.
Yeah,
So I said, do you want me to stop sending you orthotics? And they said, no, 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 please, but you're breaking the law. I said, I said, how? They said, you can't give anything to the military. It's against the law. I said, so what do I do? They said, we'll figure it out. And he went off base. He walked into a little shop that sold durable medical equipment for the military and said, if you'll carry soul supports, you'll get 100% of our business. And they said, how do we do it? And they
sure.
called me up and said, can you come out and train us? And I trained them and they started supplying them and they knew how to build the military. Well, 2 weeks later, I get a call from Lejeune, the Marine base, and then Pendleton, and on, Madigan, Bremerton, Langland, Lackley, Quantico, Hood, Fort Lee, Fort Sam, I mean, it kept going on and on. We're in about 45 bases now,
Wow,
all across the country,
how
in
incredible.
Okinawa, even Guantanamo.
How
And,
incredible.
and now they're killing us because about 2 or 3 months ago, they decided to put the Pacific Fleet in our product. And they're sending us on a Monday 700 orders. And it's putting us behind because we always give the military, they get pushed to the front of the line because you never know next week if they're going to be deployed or switch to a different base or in the boats. My gosh, they could just pull out of port.
What a fantastic thing. I said you're supplying such a need for such a special group, and I see the side effects of it because I see them when they're out of the military, just ruined feet, ruined knees, and we know that the foundation starts at the feet, and that's why I have a good arch. And I've always tried to protect that arch because a lot of times patients go, "Oh, I have a good arch." Well, how are you protecting that arch? Because again, we're not everybody. Most everybody's walking on what concrete. We were never designed to walk on concrete, and
I
it's
have to say, you're unique. Chiropractors use us a lot. They're about a third of our business,
yep,
but that's a tiny fraction of the chiropractors out there, really.
yep,
And the reason is they don't see the connection between feet and spine. And yet it's enormously connected. The kinetic chain is exactly that.
yes,
When the foot collapses, the lateral ankle, the fibula bangs into the side of the calcaneus, the knee internally rotates, the femur internally rotates, then the iliopsoas pulls the pelvis down on one side. And as I was taught by a chiropractor, it doesn't just tilt forward, it tilts, drops, and turns all at the same time.
yep,
And that wreaks havoc with the lumbar spine,
yep,
which carries up the kinetic chain all the way to TMJ. Yeah,
yep. I always like to say if you have a bad foundation and you can get leaks in the roof because
exactly.
it'll crack the ceiling. So
True.
yeah, very, very true. So the other thing I remember a lot about your particular company when I first became aware of it was number one, yes, you did have a, chiropractor on staff originally because I remember meeting them when I went out and got a tour of the factory and so on. And the other thing I always remember that makes me laugh is I had several of the workers that were patients of mine, and I believe they would come in and they were complaining because you'd taken out all the Coca-Cola machines out of the plant. Is that true?
Well, what happened was I didn't know how to run a company, really. So I left my door open all the time, and they would come in and ask for things, ask for short-term disability, long-term health insurance, dental vision, 401k. Well, I didn't know what to say, so I always said yes. So what happened was they had such an amazing benefit package, nobody ever left. My
Right.
second employee has been with me 28 years. My first employee got too old and retired after she was running the entire factory floor. Um, and I just went back to the company and everybody came up and gave me a hug. And
Yeah, I just thought that was such a cool thing because We all know also too, besides things like orthotics or chiropractic, is that the role nutrition plays in this as well. And I would always give my patients a hard time. I said, well, that's probably a good thing that they have healthy vending machines at work, or you have access to healthy snacks and not all the garbage that's at every other factory.
Oh, what happened was I had a friend who was running a restaurant in Fairview and it was failing. And she asked me to look at her books. And when I did, I said, nail the door shut. You're losing so much money here. And she said, well, I have 15,000 owed on my equipment. I said, I brought a check with me. Here's your 15,000. She said, well, now what do I do? I said, now I own your equipment. Come work for me. So I had a four-star chef
Yeah.
that fed the employees lunch for free for many years.
Yeah, I just think
And,
that's amazing. I mean, that is such a, I remember those types of stories all the time coming out. And I say, what a unique individual or business owner that would do that and have the ability to do that. You know, and like I said, that to me, that's just reinvesting back into your employees and it pays dividends.
and having a chiropractor was totally selfish on my part. Number one, I wanted it for me. And second of all, it cut my exposure for health insurance dramatically. Instead of going for an expensive surgery on their back that would debilitate them for life, they ended up getting it fixed
Yeah.
without with nobody pulling a knife on them.
Yeah, it's an amazing thing. That's why I've been a chiropractor for 34 years. So yeah, you know, we're speaking the same language. It's just amazing. And it is sad that more companies, more factories don't take advantage of that and see the big picture. Like you just said, that's been tried and true numerous times, numerous plants, the cost savings in healthcare, because we are so good at managing musculoskeletal style of injuries, which are rampant through every factory setting. And we're the best ones on the block that can do that as chiropractors.
The other thing is reasonably priced because you go get an x-ray at the hospital when
Right.
you injure yourself and go get an x-ray at a chiropractic office, it's a third.
Yep.
It's about a third.
I'm the cheap guy on the block. I hate to admit it, but I am the cheap guy on the block. But
You know
but
why?
very
Because you share our core value. Early on, I realized that the way you build a big company is you adopt a core value that you walk the talk. You will never compromise. And ours is we make people better. I tried we buy Ed a boat, but that didn't seem to work. Hence, I never had a boat.
Well, I just love the whole thing because I know this company has been very successful. I know you've expanded. As you said, getting into the military obviously is creating a huge increase in your business. But I still come across people in our community that don't even know that, hey, this is a local community or a local company. And that's one of my missions here is to get more of this word out about soul supports. And we will get all the links out. And like I said, we'll get that coordinated with you so to include on this podcast. And I don't even know how many people cast in Dickson County. I know I've been trained for years.
You're one of the very few. And by the way, your casts are excellent.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm always worried about that.
Well, you know what? We are the only company that most companies advertise for business. We put a barrier in people's way to come and use us. We require them to train on our casting technique, our theory, because it's so different than everybody else's.
Yep,
We don't allow the foot to drop and then hit the orthotic near the bottom of the range of motion like most orthotics,
right.
because a pilot once told me there's nothing more useless to you than the air above you and the runway behind you. So, and you can't control emotion after it's happened. So
Right.
if you allow the foot to drop and then you're trying to control it, your correction went out the window.
Makes sense.
It's
Yeah, makes perfect
it's
sense.
just it's just crazy what podiatrists were doing. They were making flat orthotics, and you know how they were trying to control the foot by tilting the ground 2 or 4 degrees inward.
Yep.
That was the dumbest thing I ever heard. You're taking a round object, the foot, the heel, and putting it in a round cup. It's a ball and socket. It goes wherever it wants. Then
Exactly.
the skin, I measured it on 50 people, moves 7 to 10 degrees in each direction. So your error You're putting a 4-degree post plus or minus 7 to 10 degrees. Your error dwarfs your correction.
Yeah. So no wonder most orthotics don't work. Or
No, they don't do
people don't wear
anything.
them. Most people don't wear them. I've had numerous people, they have a drawer full, and the most common complaints because they're rigid, and that's what's so unique about the sole supports. Again, it's a semi-rigid, so it has that flex calibrated to the body weight, which again, I just think that's genius.
Well, it took us 9 years and a real genius to figure that out. Not me. One of my Army engineers that was never had a day of college, just learned in the Army. And when all of my Vanderbilt trained masters in engineering would say it's impossible, he would figure it out and come in with a forklift and a thing built like it belonged in a submarine that would never ever break. And what we did was it took us 9 years to figure it out together. What finally was the breakthrough was Pascal's law. Pressure inside of an enclosed container is equivalent in all directions. We weren't enclosing the container. So we had a bladder over the orthotic, but it would explode out the sides. So when we enclosed it, we blew up the bladder. And then every 2 thousandths of an inch of motion of the orthotic, we measured the pressure inside the bag. And we had pressure distance. We had an Excel file you could graph. And the slope of that graph is the resistance to downward force. And we knew there were two main factors, body weight and flexibility. So we plotted the slope against body weight in one graph and the slope against flexibility on the other. I'll repeat that. Let me shut this down. The slope against body weight and the slope against flexibility, and it was a scatter graph, a bunch of dots. And that's where my mathematical wisdom fell short. I didn't know how to do anything with it. So I called the Vanderbilt University Biomedical Engineering Department and said, do you have an internship program? Can you send me 5 interns? And they arrived and looked at it and said, there's a button called trend line. I said, Eagle. It not only drew the line, but it gave you the formula. And then I looked at the formula and I said, that doesn't help me at all. I can't even read it. It's like so complicated. They said, we'll take care of it. 2.5 hours later, they had it all figured out. I said, you know what? That's so valuable to me. Take the summer off. I'll give you an A+. I'll pay you for the summer. And it became their master's thesis.
Incredible. Well, it's amazing how all those things just kind of roll together I'm sure as you look back over your career, just like any of us do, you see all how these pieces of the puzzle start to kind of come together and fit together. And it's just, again, what's happened with the soul sports, I think, is nothing short of genius. And again, I think it's just going to continue to, improve and increase in success, based on what you've just discovered. And like I
I
said,
have to tell you,
orthotics with it.
in 2014, my life completely changed. The bane of our existence has always been break-in. When you make an orthotic that high, it's difficult to break in. And the reason is
Yeah.
flat-footed people, as they come over the flat foot, they fire the plantar intrinsics to try to raise their own arch. Normally, you're firing into dead air. But now I put a piece of plastic there and it hurts.
Yeah.
So what happened was I was lecturing for the International Foot and Ankle Foundation in Seattle, and a young man comes up to me at the end of my lecture and said, you say it takes a month to get used to your product. I said, if you're lucky. He said, I do it in 8 minutes per foot. And I said, come on,
Say what?
that's not possible. And at the time he made dots on my foot and he showed me 12 points on the foot. And if you touch them extremely lightly, using any blunt pointed object, you could use a retracted pen. What I use most commonly, I have one here. I use a pencil eraser. The child's replacement pencil eraser?
Yep.
Let's see. Oh, here it is.
There you go. Yep.
Works fabulous and costs all of 1 penny. And if you touch, and now there are 15 points we found. And if you touch these points as hard as you would push this pencil eraser into your own eyeball, that's how light it is. So light you can barely feel it. All foot pain disappears, except for gout and neuropathy and advanced demyelinating disease. And I assume, because I've never treated it, expanding tumors, dermatologic, and vascular lesions.
Of course, yeah.
But it works on all kinds of strange pains, including struck by lightning, stung by a stingray in the ankle, uh, crazy stuff.
Well, it has to be some sort of a reflexive response, or I mean, there's lots of different touch techniques I know out there similar to that, which it sounds similar, and it must initiate some sort of a, it's almost like
Oh,
a
you're very close.
contraction relax type of response.
Well, this young man was a massage therapist. He was working for a chiropractor, and he was watching him do a technique called Logan Basic.
Yep, I'm familiar.
And he said, "Why does it just work on that ligament?" And the doc said, "I don't know. Why don't you look?" And he started mapping out the body, and he found points all over the body that
Gee,
worked just as well and returned full painless range of motion to any joint, while also eliminating 96% of all musculoskeletal pain, and in most cases, permanently.
wow.
So, in fact, I taught it recently at the Arizona Chiropractic Association. Actually, they call themselves Arizona Association of Chiropractors. And they just invited me back for a 20-person, 2-day hands-on seminar with just me teaching.
Wow.
Where I'm gonna,
We'll have to get that arranged for possibly for Tennessee, maybe.
I would love to. I do it for free.
I'll make some,
That
I can make some connections on that.
would be great. So I started looking at the literature because the touch was so incredibly light. I started with light touch receptors, and I found exactly how it works. See, most chronic pain is a 3 neuron positive feedback loop. A guy named Moses Solomanoff at the University of Denver about 45 years ago discovered that by stimulating the cat's shoulder uh, neurons and then measuring the amount of time it took for the return firing of a muscle. And it was 3.8 milliseconds, enough time for just two synapses. So they knew there was one going up, one in the middle, and one going down. Well, the one in the middle is called the interneuron. It turns out that's well accepted in pain medicine. And the neuron they call a gate. It's really not a gate, it's a switch.
Right.
When it takes a certain amount of excitation to close the switch, when it closes, every signal up goes through and back down. Now you've got your feedback loop,
Yeah.
but it always sticks. There's a mechanism to stick it in place so that you maintain the pain during the healing process. But usually, as you heal, it's supposed to reset, but it doesn't. All this does is reset the switch. You're not one bit healthier. You still need chiropractic adjustments. You still need strengthening and stretching. You
Sure.
still need all the rehab. The trouble is, this just takes away the pain. So you, as a doctor, each doctor has to judiciously decide when to administer it because there is some benefit to favoring the healing tissue during healing.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I will definitely see what I can do to help you out with that and making some connections in Tennessee. I'm sure there's hoops to go through, but if you've dealt with the military, you're used to dealing with hoops. So, um,
Actually, what I was there for, I just lectured last week to the Society of Army Physicians Assistants. And in a 4-day period, I took pain away from about 60 military people in debilitating pain. Some of them, one lady was run over by a cow. They actually knocked the fence down on top of her. Had
yeah,
the cow stepped on the fence, she'd have been dead.
good Lord.
But the cow turned around, didn't see her, and she was left in excruciating pain for about 2 years.
Yeah.
And she had been to everybody in Bismarck, North Dakota, which is not too many people, but couldn't get relief.
Yeah.
She came in about 15 minutes. She was pain free. The next day, she went out running.
Yeah, pain is I mean, you look across the board, pain is such a animal to deal with. It's resulted in the opioid crisis and the medical side, just they want to hit everything with the medication or surgery, and that just causes more disruption in the whole kinetic change, scar tissue. You know all the consequences of that. So
I
it's
had a
just it's
pain
a
medicine
shame.
doctor come to my lecture, and she said, I've been in this 35 years and I've never seen anything 20% as good as what you're doing. So if you look at all the manual therapies for pain, this is the holy grail. This
So
is the one that stands above everything else. And because it lasts. But what the difference between this and chiropractic actually fixes something. This doesn't. It's a one trick pony. And all it does is get rid of pain. And even that, you have to really have somebody determine when that should happen in the
Right.
treatment
So, well,
protocol.
with any soft tissue, you still have to restore biomechanical integrity. Yeah, and that's really what we do in chiropractic. We're restoring as much integrity to the motion, and all the negative consequences go with lack of motion. As you know, whether it's a foot or your spine, it's all the same. It causes a
Well,
tremendous amount of problems.
well, I wanted to do research and I couldn't charge anything because it was research. So I actually had to give people a reward for coming in to be treated. So I gave them an orthotic. And what I found was fascinating. I would cast them for orthotics, just take away their pain, and they'd come back a couple weeks later and most of their pain was back. Then I'd put the orthotic in, they'd stand up just with the orthotic, and most of their pain would go away. And then I would redo the releases, and the orthotic would keep away the pain because just like it helps people hold their chiropractic adjustments,
Yep.
it what really all I do, if you think about it, is I give people good form for the exercise of standing, walking, and running. Um, every exercise has good form. If you go to a personal trainer, they don't say do your bicep curls any way you want. They
Right. Form
they
is
give you
everything.
right. This is good form. The other thing I did was is so basic. I turned arch supports into arch supports. I feel like the guy who invented the trash masher. He turned 40 pounds of garbage into 40 pounds of garbage.
This is true. So I truly appreciate it. I do not want to take up any more of your time, but I do appreciate you doing this. And like I said, it's so refreshing to see a business like yourself locally, like a local business, local success story, and such a wonderful product. And I truly appreciate you taking the time to do that. And we'll be in touch sometime soon too.
And if you'll allow me, I'll come up because you're just local. I'll come up and teach you how to do, we call it relax, release, relief, because it's very transferable.
Yeah,
It's
excellent.
incredibly easy. And what I'm finding with chiropractors more than any other practitioner, when it comes to pain, I have one little arrow in my quiver. You have about 50. So what they're doing is they're combining it with things that I never even was exposed to
Right.
and taking it to levels I never dreamed of.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited to teach chiropractors because firstly, I don't want this to die with me. And
Right.
second, and I just got over squamous cell carcinoma.
Oh, goodness.
So I don't want, and that kind of scared me. So I want to make sure that enough people have this to take it into the future.
Well,
So I would like to teach you so you could teach more.
well, if I can help you expand that, I will definitely help you expand that. And like I said, we'll be in touch. And again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Beyond the Adjustment, where we have conversations with other health minded professionals to create a healthier community.